it is quite clear that something special happened during Sam's speech. And what that was halfway through, following a point of information from myself, he realised that in this scenario, ladies and gentlemen, on just the basis of democracy alone, we have never yet fought the law.
Yeah.
He conceded that because he didn't respond to it, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, he conceded that A, this debate is unfair, B, this debate hasn't yet existed, but C, that we still think we can beat them on it, ladies and gentlemen. So, how the hell are we going to pull together a case on this? Well, I actually have 2 points, somehow, to deal with this. So first of all, I start my case with this idea about sovereignty, ladies and gentlemen, the origins of sovereignty and what the purpose of sovereignty originally was. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be going on and looking at actually as democracy as a fundamental point and a linchpin within human expression, ladies and gentlemen, and how the travesty and oppression that exists under dictatorship and removing that, yes, it's a fluffy point, but oh wow, it's a fake debate. We've got to run these things. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, no, guys, choose a better motion next time. No. So, ladies and gentlemen, what did we hear from Sam? Well, we had all of this beautiful stuff about, when we come in and we fight wars, ladies and gentlemen, and we alienate people and we kill people, we make them extreme. Yes, that's true. No, thank you, guys. You had 40 minutes between you, and you still failed. Anyway, no, thank you. So the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, we think that the violence, ladies and gentlemen, that exists, when you go in and kill someone, you're going to alienate them. What they didn't say was why democracy in itself, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, alienates people. Because the fact is, we see in the real world, ladies and gentlemen, when we go into these countries, we go in because these people want us there, because they're crying out to the international community that we don't want to be oppressed anymore. We've tried internal change and it's failed, ladies and gentlemen. We want our freedom, we want you to help us, because you're another individual who has an obligation to us, as you should to every other individual within the world, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas showed you in his speech, no thank you, that when we let these people who are crying out to be freed continue to be oppressed, when we do nothing, ladies and gentlemen, then we violate our own moral conscience and our own obligations to these people. So we think on these bases of human rights grounds, we have a justification for doing it. No thank you. So, right, that was basically all we heard from Sam's speech. There wasn't much more. Now, moving on to my main point. So first of all, sovereignty. What was the purpose of it? Well, the fact is, sovereignty in the system of states that currently exists and was founded in the Treaty of Westphalia and blah, 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 is basically a social construction that we all buy into at the moment. It's there, what's the purpose? The social construction is basically there in order to facilitate the choice of individuals within society and within the world, ladies and gentlemen. The fact is, people find as individuals they could not protect themselves, they could not function and have as much option and as much choice as they could within a community. So what they did was they formed social groupings, ladies and gentlemen. They formed communities and realised that a mutual dependence upon one another was inevitable and a better option. This then got a bit complicated when you have 6 million people, an entire planet, ladies and gentlemen. So what happened was we formed states. The states were there to ensure clear dividing lines in terms of responsibility, both to one another, between states, ladies and gentlemen, but also, more importantly, a responsibility of the people in charge, who head these social groups, to the people underneath them, ladies and gentlemen. But the problem is, in the formation of these groups, we saw that some people had more power than others. When that happened, ladies and gentlemen, we saw their views, the minority having their views sidelined. We think that a dictatorship is the epitome of one minor group within society being able to completely sideline the opinions of everyone else. And we think that is wrong in itself. So, but the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, why are dictatorships wrong? Because what is there is you're not facilitating people's choice anymore. You're not doing the original basis of why sovereignty was created, because you have a monopoly of power, ladies and gentlemen, rather than a monopoly of the will of the people.
We're not arguing that dictatorships are right. We're saying that democracy simply isn't worth going into other countries to force on people to fight for. That's not what we believe in.
Okay, thank you. If that was the case, you guys have to prove why ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, internal change and democratic change can continue and somehow come within a country. No, thank you. The fact is, Tom showed you that when a dictatorship has a monopoly of power over that country, it simply doesn't happen. Or more importantly, the odds are so extreme that it's rare that you're ever going to have this happen. We think that when we went into countries within Eastern Europe, ladies and gentlemen, we were able to accelerate the change that these people wanted and prevent generations of people from being oppressed. So we think we have an obligation to do that, and it has worked, ladies and gentlemen, on this human rights basis. So the fact is, because nations and individuals have failed to facilitate the choice of their individuals, we think that every single individual in the world has an obligation and an entitlement to every other individual. They have that entitlement because of the common humanity we share, but more importantly, the mutual dependence that we have upon each other and upon the world, ladies and gentlemen, as a result. We're getting screwed over at the moment because we've been irresponsible, have been using up all the natural resources, ladies and gentlemen, and screwing people over in Africa. It happens all the time. We think that ultimately one way to correct this is to ensure that every single individual is able to facilitate their choice. Under dictatorships, you aren't able to do that. We recognise that some values are simply abhorrent, ladies and gentlemen, but those values are values that the community itself decides against. We recognise that some people may not be able to express their values because they lose a vote, but every time you have a vote, ladies and gentlemen, you have an opportunity to express those values, express those opinions, and we think that's good. And this brings me on to my second point, because the fact is, when you express those values, ladies and gentlemen, through the democratic process, you're expressing who you are, ladies and gentlemen. You're expressing your identity because who you are and how you act are predicated upon the values that you hold to be true. Every decision you make is predicated upon the objective values that you are encultured into believing as you develop as an individual, ladies and gentlemen. The political, social, and religious interactions that you have throughout your life. If you aren't able to express these things because of an arbitrary and historical division of power between people, that's simply unfair. We think that every single other people in society and in the world has an obligation to correct that. So what have I shown you today? I've shown you Sam conceded the case. The debate's unfair, yet we've still debated it and we've still won. Thank you.